free your mind, your soul, and your body. They can't stop me, but they keep on trying to keep denying that they got all of the minds pride on a personal lives as the lies unfold. Truth is sitting around waiting for some truth to be told. But let it be known that we are hoes. Questioning that'll take you out of your comfort zone. I'm not saying I know there's no don't, but it kinda feels like going right into the club. While the shepherds like the police to plot. The doomsayers debate about their doomsday plot. Some say we're a cult of believers, but how we in a cult when one doesn't believe us? You can let think, man, you know that's the credo. We keeping that in mind everywhere that we go.
Day after day we open the doors of perception, finding more and more of the same detection. Armed as minds to unlock the hidden answers, interested in research, journalistic freelancers. Having left behind any more specific proposition, opened eyes perceiving through direct observation. Having left the realm of fairy tales and fictions, sharpened beaks pointing the right direction. Making use of the tools we have at hand to fight against ignorance across our land. Smashing absurdity with blue branches, uncovering idiocy and distributing paint ranches. Separating the wheat from the chaff. Your tragedies follow patterns and make us young. Badly acting human shields that randomly spawn. Making use of the tools we have at hand. Separating the wheat from the chaff. We do in fact call the ass on your fabricated anecdotes. Moving on without you, not even leaving notes. Activating infinite potential, lying fallow. People waking up, speaking what they know. We recognize your fakes, empty the frames. We have looked through all your fancy games. Your green screen doesn't impress us anymore. Your fear tactics acting weaker despite fake gore. Not accepting faults that cause me thought cages. Thinking freely from our hearts, writing pages. Entries to the book of life so keen. Walking a new passes and ends unseen.
Alright, that's PGA Matty Moses, produced by MVP Hardware Vandal. So we've got a few people here. I'm just going to let a few more show up. I have another stream going on at DLive, and that would be the NASA and the Cult of the Obelisk, which I've been airing daily since it was released on Monday. And I'm probably going to have it stream again tomorrow. And the reason why, of course, is I think the information is important. I want to consolidate much of what we've been discussing over the last few years, given our really our direct observation of the space agencies in the last 3 years, all their footage. You know, we've accumulated a whole lot of material to counter their big stories, their big lies, if you want to just be frank about it. We're talking about propaganda analysis, which we do for fun, because it is fun. And I have that over there playing because I want to bring people up to speed on how I see it as far as the big picture. I don't believe that a Bible explains anything with regards to the world today. That's a mystic, metaphysical thing. And I'm not interested in the mysticism or the metaphysics. I'm not here to sell you a heaven or help us all navigate our way to heaven. Like, I think that's folly. I think we need to really stick to the facts. And that's what we've been doing. And if you've noticed, reporting facts is kind of illegal. Well, it's not illegal. It's politically incorrect. It's borderline illegal because it's borderline hate crime. It's certainly something that's frowned upon. Alto says the crack pipe's still burning. Yeah, I'm only using YouTube right now, as I said, because DLive is being occupied right now. I'm premiering that broadcast. Another reason I'm premiering it is that I heard Bob and Belu at Glowbusters talking about the meaning of panspermia and the idea that the rocket could symbolize an obelisk. And it's like, I've been saying this for 3 years, 3 years. I've been describing this whole template of how they grafted Mystery Babylon onto the space program. It gave us a New Age religion. And they're just now noticing. And he's going to go premiere something about it in Madrid today. And I'm like, well, just to make sure that they're not, going to take credit for ideas that maybe they stole or borrowed. Or maybe they just don't want to give attribution for some reason or another. Probably political. I wanted to get my information out there as best I could. So, We'll be watching to see what Belu puts out there and see if he's even accurate. What happens is, like for example, Eric Dubé talked about the symbol of the obelisk, and he said it was a symbol of Lucifer. I'm like, where did you get that from? Stick to battle rapping and Tai Chi. Lucifer and the obelisk, no connection. None. It's not even good research. It's just basically anything I don't like is the devil. Anyone who doesn't agree with me is a shill. So yeah, I thought it was a good new series. Yeah, for people to catch up, if it's your first time listening to this channel, what I've been doing is I've been pointing out how the New World Order religion isn't coming. There is no apocalypse. The NWO religion, the one world view or worldview that we all share, it's already been established. It was established before we were here. They just repackage it, dress it up, modify it. It just changes with the times. That's all. It changes with the times. So now the wardrobe of the high priest no longer, has the mitra, the fish god hat, but now it's just the astronaut helmet. And it's really the same thing. And that's one of the points I was bringing up. This is more than just a series of analogies or there are similarities. No, there's a distinct template. It's called religious syncretism. And they've actually aligned the symbols Kabbalistically. And I think in part 2 we talk about how they accomplished this. And this was through the head of the OTO in America, Jack Parsons, and his work with science fiction writers. And look, that was like a 4-hour and 40-minute piece, and I couldn't get into easily 30% of the detail. Like there's like a whole lot more, a big chunk I had to leave out. Like for example, there's connections between Jack Parsons and Laurel Canyon that are worth exploring, considering that these connections have to do with a literary club at the house. It was actually housed at the place of Robert Heinlein. Robert Heinlein's estate. Robert Heinlein's the guy who wrote Stranger in a Strange Land. And Stranger in a Strange Land is about this church of all worlds, world pagan church that is the unifying belief system, but it takes place on Mars. So you have this guy who's raised on Mars at the church of all worlds, and he comes back down to Earth. When I was introduced to this book, I didn't like science fiction, didn't care for it, but it was part of the curriculum, for the Thelemic organization. They said, you've got to read this. This is the perfect Thelemic society. That's what I was told. And I was like, okay, so they got this idea of a perfect world on Mars. And they actually had a way of preparing for it. And this is a striking parallel, because if you look at how they prepare astronauts for lunar colonization or the Mars base, a lot of it involves isolation tanks. In fact, all of it, it's about isolation. How long can you live with 4 people in a little dome? And recycle everything. Everything you breathe, everything you drink, everything you eat. So, this involves becoming very ascetic. It's a very austere lifestyle, stripping away all the non-essentials. So at this abbey, which I belonged to for a short period of time, they had a biosphere. And they said that's for the people who are so dedicated they're willing to step outside of the world for 6 months and engage in something they called invocation of the holy guardian angel. And it involved a lot of yoga, a lot of fasting, and a lot of time alone. And the observations, or rather you'd call them observations, they greeted the sun, they prayed to the planets. I mean, in a way, what I'm saying here is that the work of the monk and the work of the astronaut in the ISS, these things are very analogous. The hermetically sealed temple, the idea of the hermit, a group of hermits you would call something different, but what you have are these hermits up in this sealed temple. And it's literally hermetically sealed because it's a pressurized cabin. And I'm saying it goes beyond just similarities. We're actually seeing how they have actually given us a new way to recognize their old religion. And that's one of the things, well, that's the main topic, but that's one of the things that we were discussing in this longer 4 hour 40 minutes That's how long that took. And like I said, I left out quite a lot, which I know. I'm probably going to add another hour onto it, include more images and pictures, and then actually release it and copyright it and put it out in a more mainstream friendly format. And look, here we are, January 15th, 2020, and the debate hasn't moved. They have kept it stupefied. And still, we have this. We have examples of astronauts snapping pictures from the ISS and saying, there you go, flat earthers. They're constantly doing this. So what do you see there? Is that the Earth? Where are the continents? How come every picture they snap of it is just a bunch of clouds, or it's just water? And there's no consistency visually between how these things look from the ESA, from NASA, or from SpaceX. I mean, the Earth has so many different appearances depending on who's showing it to you, in what year, what camera. I mean, and I'm not talking about differences in photographic quality. I'm saying different art departments. Astronauts stationed about the ISS have a lot of important research and technical work to attend to. Right, like dressing in monkey costumes, singing David Bowie songs, answering asinine questions asked by kindergartners. Like, what do they really do up there? So it says here that they're taking a glorious picture of the curvature of the Earth. Well, one other thing to bring up here. If you are, and this is just simple geometry. So for the people who think this topic is for the dumbed down, for the ignorant, for the belligerently ignorant, that's not the case, despite how they misrepresent it. So the title of today's live stream, and I'll get back to that picture, is this: Alex Jones in a fat suit. So it is my contention, and we talked about this last night at the Discord server, we looked at this very closely. We're now looking at this character, went by the name Michael. At the Flat Earth Conference, this guy was on the Jimmy Kimmel Show, and he was on All Gas, No Brakes, rambling about his love of Hitler and acting like a dumb shit. Well, we're pretty sure it's Alex Jones now in a fat suit. Now, it's a bodysuit. It also includes aging him, and this is fake aging. It's just, this is a hyper-realistic silicone mask. He gives it away in the Jimmy Kimmel bit. You can hear it in the voice, but yes. And I'm wondering who among the Flat Earth Conference organizers knew about this. It's true that the organizer, Robbie Davidson, said that he knew Alex Jones was going to be there. Alex Jones bought a ticket, but nobody said Alex Jones was going to dress up. And before you think this is out of reach, remember, these conference organizers have Rick Hummer playing the role of Roland Reddy. So if you don't know who Roland Reddy is, and then we'll get back to that picture. My point is, they're trying to misrepresent you as being really dumb. And so they provide these very negative stereotypes to the public. And since they have to use these characters they invent because they can't really find people as dumb as they want you to look. Because truthfully, the people who look into this are the people who look into everything else. The people who question 9/11 aren't stupid. The people who question the moon landing aren't stupid. The people who question global warming aren't stupid. You see what I mean? These are just characterizations. These are just stereotypes. So we have this Roland Reddy character who you should know. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Big fan of Cat says it looks like Alex Jones in disguise. Yeah, thanks for acknowledging that, because it truly does. So I'm going to show you a character really quick. This is Roland Reddy. Now, he's not really a rocket scientist. That's a lie. He's never been around a rocket except for Mad Mike's, and he wasn't in costume. He's not a stuntman. He's never done a stunt in his life. That's a lie. Hummer apologized to the Flat Earth Conference, by the way. He said, "We didn't know Jimmy Kimmel was going to make us look dumb." Well, I have an insider call in who said, "Don't let them fool you. I watched Mark Sargent get mic'd and get ready for that little skit." So here's another skit. This is Rick Hummer. This is the organizer of the Flat Earth Conference, or one of the organizers, where he puts on these buck teeth and this accent, and he plays the role of a flat earther.
Here we are in front of the Morris Performing Arts Center. Looking forward to Neil deGrasse and Tyson.
And he says that thing with his mouth.
Neil deGrasse and Tyson.
Okay, so this is a character. That's not who he really is. In fact, this was the guy that was holding the mic for Jake Bird, oddly enough. He was holding the mic for Jake Bird so Jake Bird could make fun of Mark Sargent. Do any of you think that's a coincidence? And this is what he looks like when he's not playing the dumb redneck. He looks like a West Coaster, a left coaster, which I think he is. So you got this this guy here pretending to be a complete moron to make you guys look stupid or make people who question the mainstream news look stupid. So I'm just saying, this is not beyond the pale for me to suggest that the Flat Earth Conference organizers had Alex Jones show up putting on this costume and acting the fool. And I don't think we should let him get away with it. So if this guy Michael is a real person, he's going to speak up eventually, but look, nobody I know knows this guy. There were only 550 people at that event. By the way, people walked out on Owen Benjamin, if you didn't know. They kind of kept that a secret. But yes, this whole thing was rigged to make you guys look crazy and stupid, or to make us look like we're just a bunch of clowns. So I would say take note of the nose. Take a note of the line from the nose down and the beard. Look how closely the beard, the hairline approximates Alex Jones's. Even the way he moves and laughs on Jimmy Kimmel. But we're going to get into that. But I just want to make sure we keep bringing this up. Alex Jones played the role of a fat old dumb flat earther and acted moronic for Jimmy Kimmel's benefit. Again, I'm bringing this up because they're constantly saying things like this. Flat earthers aren't happy with this stunning photo taken by an astronaut. Well, the reason I don't believe this isn't because I'm foolish. It's because I know that the flat earther, I'm sorry, somebody says here in the comments, it does look like him. Yeah, it does look like him. He's playing the role of a flat earther. You got him. He's even got a ticket. Alex Jones bought a ticket. Okay, so we're looking at a picture of the Earth. So the Metro.co wants you to think the flat earthers are so dumb, this picture doesn't convince them. Well, does it convince you? Even if you think we're on a spinning ball, should this convince you? And the reason I ask this is that the space station is at best 272 miles above the Earth. So if you are 270 miles above a ball, 25,000 miles in circumference, would you see this much of the curve? For as much as the curve you can pretty much ascertain that he would be able to see the entire ball. Could you see a ball 25,000 miles across from 250 miles up? And the answer is no. It's way too much curve. So why would they do this? Anyway, it says she posted the photo to Twitter and they have to say small. Even though it's been admitted there's 3 million. Is 3 million small? They say it's small as though you should be ignored. Well, if that's your standard, oh, it's a small group, let's ignore them. Well, then let's ignore the non-binaries. Let's ignore the feminists. Let's just ignore any minority or political identity group because it's not mainstream. Like that's the argument that you shouldn't listen to them because there's too few is just as bad as the argument that you shouldn't listen to them, or you should listen to them rather, because there are so many. Ignore the science deniers. Ignore the nonconformist because they're not mainstream. I mean, what kind of standard is that? One of them tweeted back, so from 400 kilometers above the Earth, you think you can view the whole round Earth? Yeah, very believable. So here we go. This is what we're being shown. A photograph is not evidence. And it's not always given away by what they show you, but it's what they don't show you because it's a very carefully cultivated lie. And they don't want to really ruin it. I mean, it'd be so easy for them to spoil it. They can't do very much. Another commenter says, nice try with the fisheye, but it's flat. It's a fisheye lens. It makes it look round. So here's the thing. I find this fascinating, and Metro does this a few times. They raise the question, this is why they think it is a fake picture. They don't think they're high enough, but they don't actually supply the answers. So here it says, a commenter pointed out the ISS orbits the Earth at 400 kilometers, which equates to 250 miles away. The vast majority of the people commenting just wanted to thank Mir for sharing the images. But they don't really answer. Is that high enough to see a ball in its entirety? Is 250 miles high enough? It's a valid question. In fact, Neil deGrasse Tyson talked about this very thing, where he discussed that, how if you are the height of the space station and you were to look at it, let's say you have a globe in front of you, you would pretty much be about the height of like a credit card, like the width of a credit card, or the height of a credit card. You take the height of a credit card, press it against the globe, that's how high the space station is. So is that high enough to see the entire ball? And I'm going to say no. A YouGov poll said that 52% of the people who believe the Earth is flat consider themselves to be religious and say evidence is found in Scripture. It's not bad. Only 52%. And that's the guardrail section. The people who fell for the Bible flat Earth psyop they're really just misled, but a lot of them I think are going to be misled regardless. Like they just basically traded one set of lies for another set of lies. As I've been saying, and as the cult of the obelisk describes, the religion that they have today, the dominant religion, it's just Christianity repackaged as science fiction. There's really nothing different between Christianity, Thelema, or any of these other. They're all astrotheological. Okay, so let us continue. And early on, I recognized that the Bible being inserted into the conversation was sabotage. Truly sabotage. Would you bring a Bible to a conversation about climate change? Your answer should be no. So why would you bring a Bible to a conversation about geography? So when it comes to the space station, what it would take to convince me would be an iPhone. If they took an iPhone into the space station and just let it bounce around in space, and I could see it floating around and see no cables, no green screen, yeah, then I would buy it. But look, we're on a stage, more or less, and we know they are. But what I mean is, well, actually, we're more like in the stands and they're on a stage. It's like if you're watching a magic show, you can't really see from where you sit how they make it happen, how they create the illusion. You'd have to be backstage. You'd have to know something. But from where you are in the stands, if you bought a ticket to the magic show, good luck trying to figure out, how he actually did it. Or if you're watching Chris Angel on TV, good luck trying to figure it out. They're going to edit out anything that would give you any insight as to how they pulled it off. So what makes you think that when it comes to the space station that we're going to have any real silver bullet? Like it's not necessarily like that. Like once you know it's a magic show, you know it's a magic show. You could go watch a magician for 20 years and not know how he did his tricks. But at no point do you think that he's doing real magic. And that's where I'm at with the space station. I'm like, okay, I know it's a magic show. Maybe I don't know all your tricks. I know most of them. But I know it's a show. And the majority of the people today who watch this stuff, the mainstreamers, they just don't know it's a magic show. Because they've been, conditioned, just to trust these authorities blindly. And they really don't want you to pay attention to the man behind the curtain. So much so that they have their favorite disinformation agent, Alex Jones. And Alex Jones isn't good. Like, he's not a good source of information. People will say, well, he's good for people who just woke up. What does that even mean? The truth community hasn't freaking woke up. If you look at the so-called truth community, the only ones who have really made any moves towards this idea of waking up would be the ones who figured out auto-hoaxing, and not only auto-hoaxing, but knowing over believing. Many people figured out the news is fake, but they're still believers looking for metaphysical explanations and solutions for everything. That's how you can go from, I'm going to be a hyper-objectivist and auto-hoax the media, but then I'm also going to be a Mandela-affected occultist, because that's what that is. It's extremely contradictory. Okay, now I have a couple of things I want to show you. I had found something yesterday, and I posted it over on my timosmond.space blog. This is the blog where I post things about people who don't like me and about the world in general, but I like to put everything behind a $1 paywall because it makes them super mad. Yeah, this is it here I want to show you. This is Plato's Cave. At the end of the Call to the Obelisk, I bring up that show, Space Cadets, where you have a group of people who believe that they're in outer space, that they're in low Earth orbit, and it's all a hoax made for TV. And at one point, they pull the walls down, and they realize, oh crap, we're still on Earth. Well, to me, that's kind of like Plato's Cave. And so this is an image of the cave where the people at the bottom mistake the shadows on the wall for reality. Behind the wall, that would be the MSM creating the shadows on the wall for the ones who believe it. So these are the people I would categorize as the auto-believers. If it's on the screen, if it's on the wall of the cave, they believe it. That's their standard, and if you don't, you're crazy. So the cave dwellers, that is the MSM people, they're completely deceived. And they think you're crazy. And as the allegory goes, the people who leave the cave and come back in, they're laughed at. So when I see this type of stuff, I'm like, okay, so they're telling the masses to laugh at those of us who no longer trust the pictures, the shadows on the cave. I don't trust any of that stuff anymore. I don't trust 9/11. I don't trust Sandy Hook. David Hogg's a twerp and a liar. Like, I know these things to be a fact. Nobody died in New Zealand. That was a freaking joke used to censor the internet. Like, we know this. Prime Minister Ding Dong was a part of that psyop, and it was used to influence policy everywhere, including here in America. Because of one guy over there who based his... this whole thing was staged. We know this. Autohoax.com. We break all these things down. So they really don't want you to be looking out. And so those of us who went outside, who left the cave, we're coming back in, and we're getting more people to get up and leave. So the game programmers, and that would be the ones who manufacture the illusions, they mix in with the truthers to keep the truthers from leaving all the way. Most of them, like right here, you see the people on the diagram who are very close to the exit. This is where the Flat Earth Conference happens. And they don't want people going all the way and not only questioning dominant scientific paradigms, but they don't want people questioning the news at a fundamental level, because then they won't vote for the puppets. Are you going to vote for a shadow on the wall? Because if you didn't know, Donald Trump is a shadow on that wall. This is why it's bullshit for them to try to say that we're a bunch of Republicans, that conspiracy theorists are Republicans. We're right-wingers. We default to Trump. No way. Trump and Hillary are both shadows on this same wall, and so we're not even amused by them. Politics is show business for ugly people. If I want to be entertained, I'll watch Netflix. I get the same exact messages without having to endure any of the ugliness. They hire better-looking people, better scriptwriters, better effects. It's why I like science fiction better than what NASA provides us. It's a contest of special effects. The limiting factor when it comes to space, deep space exploration, is CGI. Now, of course, the auto-hoaxers are the people up here on top. These are the people who are no longer perceiving reality indirectly through the medium of the media, but who are now directly perceiving. So this is the reason why the term auto-hoax is important. What it means is, originally, for those who don't know, it was a way of attacking people who said that the shadows on the wall were fake. They said, well, you got to analyze it first. You got to consult the consensus before you can say it's fake. Don't you want to listen to the crisis actors and hear their accounts of what happened? And those of us who realized it was all fake were like, nope, it's a lie. Like, have you ever had a liar try to sell you on a lie and you know it's a lie and then you got to listen? It's like, look, I already called it. I already called BS. Do I have to listen to your whole spiel? I'm done with the MSM spiel, with their whole story. We know it. We know it's bullshit. So we're free to walk out. I don't have to read the Bible to debunk it. I don't have to read Dianetics to debunk it. I know that these are worldviews that are not based on anything other than arguments from authority and various fallacies, divine fallacy mostly. Arguments from, ad populum, just consensus. Screw that. So I can reject everything that they say on the news automatically. Auto hoax. And you're welcome to try to prove us wrong. Show me where somebody died and or cried. Show me where they landed on the moon. And show me your evidence without resorting to pseudoscience. And I found an excellent article here written for scientists. And it was just explaining why, if you're a scientist, you need to understand pseudoscience because you might be engaging in it without even knowing it. Like, did you know that the climate change models are largely based on a flat atmosphere? And this is considered to be a problem. Some climate scientists, or is actually someone who's trying to refute the climate scientists, brought this up. Watch. Climate change model, flat Earth. Here we go. Evolution of climate change models. The GCM's model is a flat Earth. And it wasn't a huge deal. It was simply that they didn't assume or they didn't calculate for a spherical atmosphere. They treated the climate as, layers, stratified layers, when making their calculations about the effects of greenhouse gas and the greenhouse effect. So it was just pointed out that, are we going to trust it when their model bears very little resemblance to reality? But of course, the person who brought up this complaint was still more or less mainstream in every other respect. Around Earth for Climate Models, September 24th, 2019, it says the early climate and weather models were constrained by computing resources and they made numerical approximations based on the real world. One process, radiative transfer of sunlight through the atmosphere, has always been a costly component. And this is the part where they screwed it up. He says the Earth's surface and atmosphere are locally flat, and this remains in the current models. Correcting from a flat to a spherical atmosphere is going to lead to regionally different solar heating rates, comparable to the climate forcing by greenhouse gases and aerosols. In addition, spherical atmospheres change how we evaluate aerosols' direct radiative forcing. So again, this is climate science. I'm not a climate scientist, but I'm just pointing out that they're finally able to use models that account for a spherical atmosphere. You think they would have got this right originally? It was brought up kind of ironically. Some scientist figured it out. He's like, hey, because he doesn't believe in climate change. He's like, you keep calling us flat earthers because we don't believe in climate change, but you guys are the ones using a flat earth model. And mind you, this just changed. Like, this was just until recently, a couple months ago. Okay, so this other article here is from thenest.com, Neurologica blog, and it just says, science is not broken, there are problems that need to be addressed. And it makes a few points here about how there needs to be a pattern of independent replication consistent with real phenomenon, and how the evidence has to be proportional to the claim, and how you could easily slip into the habit of pseudoscience if you're not fact-checking your sources, or if you're just taking things on tradition, like the Cavendish experiment. How many of you have actually replicated it? How many of these climate scientists actually went back and checked to see if their model was flat or round? Apparently none. So you could be the most objective person in the world, but if your model is screwed, your whole point of view is going to be screwed. Same thing goes for the mainstream media and journalism in general, where you could be an honest person, but if you're reading teleprompted scripting, are you honest? How do you know? I would say you're not. Okay, space race news. Race to Mars. China launches a test of the world's most powerful rocket in a new space venture. A couple of things here I picked up. I think that might be in the subtext. This new rocket that they're testing out in China, check this out. It is called the Long March 5. And it dropped off its satellite, as a test satellite, 33 minutes into its launch. What is it with the space program and that number 33? What is it with the MSM? And so many things corresponding to that number. But I thought the name of the rocket, Long March, was interesting. Considering, it's China. I've been talking about how the Mars program or the whole space program is a way to get us to Mars, and Mars is just another way of getting us to accept gulag life. They're idealizing gulag life. Oh, this is Mars. It's going to be glorious. It's going to be ascetic. You can eat potatoes for a bit, but you'll have video games, you'll have pot, and you'll live under a dome. You'll be underground, but it's communism, and that's what you all want, right? Because yes, the millennials have all been programmed to love communism. So I see this Chinese rocket and the space race, and they want to get there first because they want China to define it. They don't want America to define not only Mars, but outer space in general. The new space race is really going to be about capitalism or communism. And it's got to be communism because communism is green, which it's not. That's a big lie. But that's what they're going to have you think, that capitalism is the polluter. And that is a monumental lie that's actually not addressed enough. And I'll probably get into that soon too. Oh, by the way, an asteroid just shot past us at 27,000 miles per hour. Supposedly. Every week. Seems like every other week. And Bill Cooper pointed something out. I was looking at some of his work again about the space program, and he was remarking on how much they use the number 13 and why, even with the launch times. And that's something I was talking about the other day with this cult of the obelisk, is the symbolism. Well, these things are replete with symbolism, and I barely scratched the surface. There are so many rituals that go into how the astronauts conduct themselves before the launch. I mean, did you know that the astronauts ritualistically urinate on the wheel of a bus before they get in the rocket? I might have to do a separate documentary on just the astronauts' bizarre little rituals. Okay, so anyway, let's get back on topic here. Oh, and really quick, the female astronauts apparently throw it from a vial. Commenter says, I wasn't notified of this stream. If you are on Patreon, you will get notified. I send out an email. There's a link below. Patreon.com/Infinite Plane Society. The cover charge is $1 per month. But the $1 tickets are running out. There's 8 left. It's going to go from $1 a month to $2 a month. And that's for notifications, newsletter, access to everything, pretty much. So I wanted to bring up this phrase to you, the long march through the institutions. Because the Long March is what the Chinese called their rocket that's going to Mars next month. And listen to this. The Long March through the Institution is a slogan coined by student activist Rudy Deutsch to describe his strategy for establishing the conditions for revolution, subverting society by infiltrating institutions such as the professions. The phrase Long March is a reference to the prolonged struggle of the Chinese communists, which included a long march of their army across China. So this term came from, it was mainly the work of Antonio Gramsci, who said, you're not going to get the workers of the world to unite in a quest to overthrow the capitalists. We're going to have to subvert their institutions. And so they've called this the Long March through the institutions. How the communists are going to win the Long March. And I've been saying the space program is a communist program. It's designed to utterly subvert all of our institutions and professions until we willingly decide to become communists. Well, they succeeded through the space program. I think I've been vindicated. Again, now we have it. The Chinese are actually calling their Mars ship the Long March. Doesn't get any clearer than that. Space communism. The Long March through the institution wasn't just cultural Marxism and turning people into liberals. It was turning everyone into space cadets, including the right. So I don't take Donald Trump seriously anymore. Space Force, give me a break. He's a communist now. Don't you understand? I mean, that's what it really is. It's really about a totalitarian system. This is why this is bogus. This constant attack that this smear on the right. Oh, if you're a right-winger, you're a flat earther. It's like, well, no, the right-wingers are now locked tight in the globe heliocentric paradigm, and they're totally with the mainstream views of science. Even if they say they don't believe in global warming, they're going to act as if it does exist. You know, the whole thing is we all know about watermelon Marxism, red on the inside, green on the outside. But the whole thing is they used environmentalism to mask communism, and it's all a power grab. But then they've used the space program to mask environmentalism. So the right knows not to touch environmentalism because it's communism, but then they're all over the space program. GOP takes flat earth view that shuns science. And again, if you say that 97% of people believing in something makes it true, then you have just shunned science. That's how bogus this is. It's not scientific to believe because they say to believe. It says, how did Republicans become the Flat Earth Party? And this is where they're trying to redefine the term. A flat earth position is a common sense viewpoint that becomes outmoded in a scientifically oriented world. So this is how they try to use the term. In fact, Rep. Swalwell and Rachel Maddow were talking about this report from Russia that was debunked, and they called it a flat earth report. And that's where we got the little soundbite here, which was our first theme song for this podcast when we started almost 3 years ago. So, shout out to Rep. Swalwell, I think he's from Alabama, and Rachel Maddow. I'm going to play an excerpt from the Flat Earth Report really quick. If you haven't had a chance to share the stream, please do. And I'll put a link to Patreon below. It does accept pretty much all forms of payment, $1 a month. You get all the notifications, links, and insider access. Here's MVP's The FE Report.
We are at risk of having a flat Earth report come out of the House Intelligence Committee as to what happened with Russia.
A flat Earth report. Those are striking terms.
And it didn't take us long to seize that. And I'm sure they regretted using those words afterward. Okay, so patreon.com/Infinite Plane Society, or you can just go to infiniteplanesociety.com and you will get those notifications. A few other things I wanted to go through. Race to China, we went over that. The Long March, do you believe it? The Long March? How blatant is that? So we had that article at the very beginning where NASA is showing you a picture of the Earth and it's way too curved to be true. It looks about this curved. This is another picture. This is said to debunk the flat Earth, and many ignorant people will say, hey, look, checkmate, Flat Earth Society. And this one went wildly viral on Reddit. And this is something too, Reddit. It's a site where it's like, well, it went viral on Reddit, so it's true. The fact is, the guy's on Mount Everest. Mount Everest isn't high enough to get that much of a curve. We had a real-life pilot call the other day who said at 34,000 feet, he believes he might see the hint of a curve. Well, that's one person's view. But my point is, it's not that curved, even at 36,000 feet. So for this guy to be on top of a mountain, nah. Another lie. So why do they have to use lies? That's my question for all of you globies. Why do you gotta lie? Like, if it's true, why wouldn't you just use the truth? Why can't you just show us pictures that you find convincing without hiding the fact that you're using a curvert lens? Okay, so you remember that thing with the Cybertruck? I don't know what the deal is. Are they trying to deconstruct Musk, or is this just a gimmick to get headlines? But he brought out his indestructible truck, the Cybertruck. It's this bulletproof thing, and then he taps it, and the window shattered. Well, now Elon Musk is selling Cybertruck bulletproof tees inspired by the Unveil event. So you had that event where they touched and I'll show it to you, the Cybertruck unveil. It had to be staged. This is what I find so strange about this whole situation. So the Cybertruck unveil basically was characterized, or it was, here we go, overshadowed by the window being broken when Elon Musk merely touched it or something and the window shattered. Well, now they're having this shattered glass put onto a t-shirt. I'm going to show you the unveiling. But between this and Mousegate, it's another thing where, are they just being extremely careless? Or is this some type of humor that we're not, privy to? Is it an inside joke? So here we're looking at the Cybertruck unveil event. And people are asking, was it staged when the window broke? Tesla Cybertruck window break, was it staged? Okay, so they threw a steel ball at the window as a demonstration of its strength. So it was more than a tap.
Yeah. Yes. Go ahead. Bounce. Well, maybe that was a little too hard.
Maybe it wasn't staged. I don't know. But this is the same guy who put rats on the outside of his rocket for one of his fake launches in order to make a joke. If you just got here too, I want to point this out again. It's pretty clear that Alex Jones put on an old man costume. Look, even the same beard. And he acted the fool at the Flat Earth Conference. I'm willing to place bets on this. I see we've got about 38 or 39 domestic terrorists in the chat room right now. Put a 1 in the chat if you think that this is Alex. And something else to consider, Alex Jones knows Jake Bird. So put a 1 in the chat if you think we nailed it. Now we're suggesting that this is a hyper-realistic mask, silicone mask, stagecraft, put on a fat suit. Sir Vev has to go. He says, I got chores to do, unlike Elon, who does nothing all day but watches The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Yeah, and he hangs out with his weirdo girlfriend, who's non-binary. Now, nothing against those of you who are non-binary, but my point is, Elon Musk is a Thelemite. He's the head of the SpaceX Mars project, and the god that they venerate for the New Age, the form of Mars they venerate is Horus, and they say that he is going to be represented as an androgen, or non-binary. We're in the age of the non-binary god. So for Musk to be dating a non-binary, very interesting. Okay, Osher says 1, Flat Stuff says 1, Blank says 1, Man Beardella, excuse me. It's a Mandela affected bear. All agree that that is Alex Jones. Man, that's too bad we didn't know earlier, like during the event. But no one had actually seen this guy. That's the funny thing about it. No one actually had seen, and we don't know who this guy is. He doesn't have a channel. He's wearing a Flat Earth Society shirt, which is a joke. He's not even wearing the right swag. Clearly, this is just a LARP. And look, it's a LARP who's LARPing. He's already LARPing. J Cobcat says, one Bill, one Alex, 100% fraud. Right. Yep, I get you. I'm with you on that. That is, I mean, look, he's already a deep fake. And the deep fakers do this. Exactly, Thirst for Truth. David Weiss, who knows Alex Jones, said, he says, Alex Jones got a ticket. They knew it for a fact. Alex Jones in a fat suit. Very clever. They don't want this to get out, I guarantee it. That's why I'm putting it out there. In fact, that's why I started this live stream. I was like, out of all the things that we need to get out there now, let's go ahead and move this one to the front. Bob Dazzler says Alex doesn't need a fat suit. That was my first thought. That's why I'm emphasizing old fat man costume. I didn't put just fat costume. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and hand out wrenches to those of you in Discord, only if you're a Black Wrench member or a patron. Okay, so let's move on. A couple other things I wanted to talk about. Elon Musk selling shirts. Okay, Flat Earth Millionaire. Another shill. And this guy was at the conference as well. Another shill. So check this out. This guy's name is T. Stu. He's a millionaire who's offering $200,000 to anyone who can prove a globe. And here's why I think he's a shill. Not because he's hanging out with the abusive Nathan Thompson, who, if you didn't know, got really drunk, there was a video of it, kicks down his girlfriend's door, or ex-girlfriend, terrifies her, and doesn't leave until the girl's, or the woman's 2-year-old daughter says, stop being mean to my mommy. So this is Nathan Thompson. And both of these guys are Jew haters. Nathan Thompson and T. Stu at the Flat Earth Conference were both bashing on Jews. Just bringing that up. Now, here's the thing. T. Stu's offering $200,000 to anybody, anyone, who can prove the Earth is a ball. And this reminds me very much of Sidethorn Journalist. How many of you remember Sidethorn Journalist? Sidethorn Journalist was an auto hoaxer who went to 33 different shooting sites. Again, there's that number. He went to 33 different sites and he said that these were all DHS drills. He stopped at Sutherland Springs, and that's where he was apprehended. He was arrested on the news, like in front of all things, in front of Vice. So in front of Vice.com, this guy, Sidethorn Journalist, gets arrested. And he makes himself famous for calling David Hogg a crisis actor. Now here's the thing about him. He was offering $100,000 for anybody who could prove that somebody had actually died or been killed at one of these events. He was arrested on gun charges. She was thrown into a mental hospital. 2 big auto hoaxers came out of nowhere, debunked all these sites or went to these sites, harassed a lot of people, and then gets arrested on Vice and says, these are the people who question school shootings. And it's kind of funny, I actually asked them about that. I said, you ever heard about, Sandy Hook being fake? And they said, oh yeah, the people who call school shootings fake, aren't they like, crazy people who get arrested on Vice? I'm like, yeah, apparently. So anyway, this was clearly a ruse. He was offering $100,000 to prove somebody died. Well, guess what? You could offer $11 billion for a crisis, for a dead body. I will give you $11 billion if you can prove to me that somebody died at Sandy Hook. You can't. If nobody died, you can't prove it. You can't prove a negative, no matter how much money you attach to it. So I think this is bogus. If he had said, I'm going to give $100,000 to a whistleblower, maybe we would have come up with something. But there was nothing. Angela Tate says they'll be in their new roles now. Oh, more than likely. That was an act. Just like Rick Hummer being Roland Ready, this turning into a redneck to make people look stupid. That's what they do. It's a sick game. This is what Democrats do. Democrats will have people dress up like Klansmen and go photobomb, Republicans. It's all just part of the game. So my point is, this guy here, T. Stew's offering $200,000 to prove a globe. You know it's not going to happen. What are they going to do? Is he just trying to make a point then? I could make that same deal. $11.3 billion if you can prove a globe. And I'm going to use T. Stew's rules. It's bullshit. And he's got to be smart enough to know that's bullshit. So what I think is that if he was legitimate, he would say, I've got $200,000. I'm going to buy 2,000 billboards. I'm going to fund Expedition South. I'm going to find out what the fuck's going on at the North Pole. But nothing. He's not investing the money into any of these things. Nope. He's hanging out with creeps like Nathan Thompson and having this token, prize for somebody who can meet this challenge. But like I said, nobody can. So his money's not going anywhere. He's not putting his money where his mouth is. This is a ruse. He's most likely a shill, just as much as Sidethorn journalist and Nathan Thompson. Thought I would bring that up. You probably saw this yesterday. We've been calling out the deepfakes, and this is pretty funny. This was sent to me by Cam B. This idea, if you haven't looked into it, we're talking about how Alex Jones is wearing a fat suit. Well, Miley Cyrus does the same thing, according to this conspiracy theory. And I don't think it's a conspiracy theory. The thinking is that she actually showed up, or rather has that she surfaces again and again as this other character she plays the role of, and it's a NBA wife, Ayesha Curry. It's basically just hair dye and a fat suit at most. The weight fluctuates, but I think Cam B nailed this one because the feet are the same, the knees are the same, which is kind of hilarious considering that Miley Cyrus's knees are very distinctive. She went on the Tonight Show and she talked about how people think that her knee looks like Seth Rogen, and other times like Johnny Neutron. Well, Curry's got the same knees. Now, here's why I think this is kind of funny, though. This is a new mascara line by Ayesha Curry. And listen to this. This is from the LE magazine. Ayesha Curry wants to make your mascara twerk. Inside joke. It's got to be. Inside joke, this is Miley Cyrus playing a role. The knees give it away, the feet give it away. I mean, what else do we really need? Commenter says the knees are right and exact. Yep. So here they are saying, Ayesha Curry wants to make your mascara twerk. If you didn't read the name, if you just saw this here, she wants to make your mascara twerk, you're going to say Miley. It's all disguised. It's all Hollywood. It's not arcane. It's not even like a bold claim. We're not talking about anything like shape-shifting, reptilians, MK Ultra, clones, none of it. We're talking about stagecraft. Oh, also, I want some of you Republicans to rest easy. Apparently, somebody from Project Veritas, which is... In fact, let me just bring them up really quick. James O'Keefe. I'm going to point out James O'Keefe, another shill. I hate to say it, I like their work. I just wish it was real. I've always been a believer in this type of independent journalism. I thought he was real, James O'Keefe, speaking truth to power, brought down Acorn, rattled Planned Parenthood with his undercover antics, his journalism. I thought he was the real deal. So now one of his guys gets one of Bernie Sanders' guys on tape saying, yeah, we need to re-educate the Republicans so we don't get Nazis. And so now this is going viral. Alex Jones is, flying off the handle about it, and he's like, they want to throw you in re-education camps. So the Republicans are in a tizzy right now. So I'm just saying, chill. You're crying wolf, or you're hearing them crying wolf, but the wolves already ate your sheep and shat out the remains. The Democrats already have their brainwashing camps. They're called public schools, and the hyper-realistic school shooter drills are how they're going to seize your guns. They're not going to take your guns all at once in one day. They're going to take 20 years to do it. And they're about 18 years into that. So it's already been done. Man Berdella says, is Max Egan a flat earther? Max Egan may be a flat earther, but he thinks the shootings are real. He thinks MK Ultra is real. Max Egan has been utterly discredited. Max Egan is a shill for Prime Minister Ding Dong, and you can tell him I said that. He called me. We spoke for 45 minutes after the New Zealand hoax. He lied his ass off. He defended the hell out of it. And I'm never going to play it because it didn't turn out well. It was going to be a podcast. But basically, he tried to get me to agree that the real reason why they banned the videos from New Zealand isn't because they're so fake you can see through it, but because it shows how mind control works. And he claimed that they were Palestinians being ritually murdered by a mind-controlled assassin in New Zealand. And I said, Max, cool story, bro. Did you see the second video where the crisis actors get up off the ground and you see the Windex bottle with the fake blood in it? He said, I didn't look at the second video. Well, it's like, I don't really give a damn about what you have to say. 100% confirmed shill for the Prime Minister. Screw that guy. Don't care what shape he thinks the world is. He's 5 years behind at best. That gives him zero credibility. In fact, if anything, it just shows that they're desperate to make sure that the people who question official science aren't questioning the news at the level that we are. Mark Sargent doesn't know about auto hoax. There's a reason why. Matt Powerland doesn't auto hoax. There's a reason why. Matt Powerland's take on Parkland. It wasn't a conspiracy, you guys. This is just because you're not homeschooling your kids and the public schools are putting your kids in danger. No, they're not. It was a psyop. Yeah, so he's a false flagger, Max Egan. Nothing to see there. Here's what I think of him. Go to flatballs.com. That's FLATBALLZ.com. A number of characters who discredit themselves eventually get memed to Timbuktu. So if you want a Max Egan meme, this is a flatball. Basically, it's a, I don't know how to describe it, just high art. Putting a link in the chat. Commenter says, I was part of that New Zealand think tank for the documentary. That was iconic and fun. Thanks. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was great. So if you go up, look up Christchurch shooting documentary. Now, check this out. The Christchurch shooter's name was Brenton Tarrant. The shooter at the Church of Christ last month was in Tarrant County. Shooting a mosque, filmed it. Shooting a church, filmed it. And those aren't the only correlations. Look, they're actually making a film based on the Christchurch shooting. Unbelievable. Okay, so there's a Christchurch shooting documentary. You can get it at BitChute. And it's by the Infinite Plane Society. You can find it on the Infinite Plane Society website or channel over there. I'm going to play the intro for you. I think I can get by with about 5 minutes of it. What's up, Psyops Matter? Yeah, D-Live is compromised right now. I'm airing Cult of the Obelisk again. I was describing earlier, there's easily 2 or 3 more hours of content to put in that thing, but it's just not the way to do it. I want to get the main ideas, the big picture, the gestalt, that Mystery Babylon has been re-envisioned for the space age, and we can show you the parts that make up this thing. Okay, so I'm over here at bitshoot.com/infinite plane society, and I'm going to go ahead and give you a link. Here's a link below. Now, the Christchurch shooting documentary is about 30 minutes long. It's an IPS think tank production. Here's a direct link to that. I'm going to play the first about minute of it. Oh yes, one other thing. They did arrest people for downloading this video. I think it was faked. I don't think they actually really did put anybody away. But they shut down BitChute. And I don't know if we played a part in it or not, but I think it was in general. They had their sights on not just this channel, but all the auto hoaxers were migrating to BitChute, and that's probably why. It may not have been this shooting in particular, but they probably had it planned. We need a shooting to justify shutting down alternatives to YouTube. They also went after 8chan and 4chan. Polarization. All of these psychological warfare operations are based on polarization. It's intended to get a response. They're provocations. So the very first thing I do when I analyze these events is, who's the bad guy and who is he polarized against? And it's always a he for some reason. So in this one, our very first encounter with this individual was white guy, manifesto against immigrants, shooting a mosque. So that called to mind Anders Breivik, who was also a white guy, anti-immigrant, and did an atrocity just like this one for the same reasons. So when I saw that, I immediately knew this is going to be the story. So let's watch the news to see how they amplify this message, that immigrants are victims. And when the Prime Minister came out to speak on the topic, the first thing she said was, some of these people were migrants. They are us. They are immigrants. So she started speaking about the victims as though she knew them. Well, how does she know? How could she possibly know who was shot and what the motivations were? There hasn't actually been an investigation. So one of the keys to identifying, I think, whether an event is real or not is it an investigation or is it story time? And are they introducing the characters and the narrative and then the plots and the subplots and the heroes and the other components of the story in sequence so you can follow along with it? And I've noticed too, they put a lot of conflicting stories intentionally to confuse people. So you find it to be futile to try to be self-informed on the matter, and you're dependent on them to tell you what's up. And with every one of these events, we're all just sitting there waiting as the body count rises until some authority figure comes out and speaks on the matter. And Prime Minister comes out and says, yep, bad event, immigrants are the innocent ones here. This other guy here who did it is not one of us. Gun control, gun control, gun control. Very predictable. So another key to identifying one of these events is, are they introducing gun control immediately in the wake of it? And again, it hasn't been investigated. We don't know. We really don't. I mean, the media has taken upon itself the role of judge, jury, executioner, and people go along with it. And it's very much a lynch mob mentality that they rely upon and that they create. There's no reason why witnesses to an atrocity should run to the mainstream media and start talking about it, especially when there's a second shooter on the loose. Are you telling me you witnessed a violent crime and you're going to put your face on TV where one of the persons who got away with it can now identify you as a witness? Would never happen. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that. This is a 30-minute documentary. I go through many of the headlines. I show that the narrative preceded the actual event. You can see people getting up off the ground. So I'm going to show you this one piece here. So for anyone here who thinks the event was real at all, including Max Egan, the shill, if Max Egan was watching, because he told me personally, he told me I didn't watch the second video. Well, the next 10 seconds debunks the whole thing. Has to be wearing. But the crisis actors look like they just went shopping at Target. They don't even look like the same people. There are a number of crisis actors who embellish so much. Like one of them said, and this is the part. Okay, here we go. This is the guy here with the jacket. See this guy with the turquoise jacket? Really trying to hold the media accountable is with. Now, he's going to die in a second, or he's going to play dead. Okay, there he is. Oh, he's dead. How sad. And then he's going to get up. So, you want to believe this is real? Go for it. These people are texting each other on the floor. There's bullet shells, no blood, because this is a joke. There's even a whiteboard where you can see the schedule. So look at this. He's playing dead. Look at that. This is at mosque number 2. This is the video that debunked the whole thing. Flat Stuff Earth says better not to play this on YouTube. Well, show me where I'm violating any rules, please. Did I show any gore? No. We're looking at people walking around. This is a drill. Nobody tells me what to say. Especially now. It's such a hideous double standard. Okay, so let's see. You can get that on BitChute if you want to watch the whole thing, even the parts that are censored. A couple other things I want to go over today. I'm just making sure we don't miss anything. Look, if you just got here, this is a mystery. We're trying to solve it here. Can anybody here refute this? It appears to be that Alex Jones is wearing a fat old man costume in order to ridicule flat earthers. Does anybody here think that this is someone other than Alex Jones? Is Alex Jones, aka Bill Hicks, deep faking? He's already a deep fake. Anyone? Nothing but ones in the chat. Put a 2 if you think they're 2 different people. Put a 1 if you think it's the same dude. Alex Jones in an old fat man costume. Can somebody get this? Someone run this by David Weiss. Somebody who knows Alex Jones needs to bring this up. A bunch of people are saying 1s. Mark Holloman 1. Marve 1. Flashsurf 1. Psyops 1. Authentic says Bill Hicks ? Dude, how far behind are you? Really? When people question that Bill Hicks thing, I'm like, are you that programmed? Most of the people who question it never heard of Bill Hicks until they heard that he might have been Alex Jones. And then they look back. Like, are you still at that level? Which is fine if you are. I'm just saying, like, there's a world stage. Climate change is fake. You got plenty of narrative subtext to support it. Well, some people may not be convinced, and I think if you're not convinced, it's just because you haven't looked at all the evidence. Authentic says it was a joke. Well, you weren't there, so you don't know. Like, what's your authority? And I'm guaranteeing that you're not going to call in, and because I can provide you evidence to back it up. And that's what we're going to do. In fact, this Cult of the Obelisk thing, this 4-hour hangout we did on Sunday, it worked out very well. It was very productive. So I've been working on something else. I think this Sunday I'm going to do a 2 to 3 hour special on deep fakers, and I'm going to show you why I'm calling Alex Jones Bill Hicks. This ties into everything. Don't you know Sandy Hook was a hoax? Listen to me. Listen to this, and tell me if you can explain this authentic, if you're really a real person here and not a troll. See if you can work this out in your head. If Alex Jones is real and he's not Bill Hicks and he's getting sued by crisis actors, why did he capitulate? You're getting sued by crisis actors when you can unveil one of the most egregious examples of a staged fake event for political purposes, and he backed down? No way. Not a real person. Not a real person. That was a kangaroo court. You really think that a crisis actor can be in court? You think that Robbie Parker or any of these other actors could actually physically show up with IDs to back it up? No, we're talking about actors. Unless you don't know that Sandy Hook is real. I mean, is a psychological operation. But what I'm not doing, though, is I'm not here to convince people of things that you don't already believe. What I'm here to do is I'm just here to point out one thing. You believe what you believe because you saw it on the cave wall. The shadows on the wall told you this person is this person, that person is that person, and this is how things went down. So you still believe what they tell you to believe, and that's all I'm saying. So you want to believe the official story? You want to believe the world stage script? Be my guest. But we've already deconstructed this one. That's why I'm kind of like derisive of it. I'm like, all right, go ahead. Go ahead and believe this guy is not a deep fake, and believe he's authentic all you want, and he's fighting the system, or whatever you want to think. And if it's a stretch, I'd have to ask you why. Because much of it has to do with your Overton window. When you look at the genre of science fiction or any of the action movies, these movies are there, or even the video games. They are there to open your Overton window, your ability to conceptualize something radically new or different will be more or less steered. So it's like they want you to accept something first, they want to steer you there with the culture. They want to give you the ideas in advance. Everything is like that with this world stage. But my point is here, this thing is so staged, so fake, that anybody on it is pretty suspect, especially somebody playing such a huge role. I mean, if you look at the role that Alex Jones has played in getting the conspiracy theorist crowd demonized, marginalized, and censored, how many of these mass shootings have been blamed on him? And if they don't blame the shootings on him, they blame the people who don't believe in the shootings on him. He did also claim that he had a psychotic episode that caused him to question Sandy Hook. He's also Vegas strong, which is another red flag. Eddie Bravo is Vegas strong. High Impact Flicks is Vegas strong, which means that they stand in solidarity with the victims. Joe Biggs, Vegas strong. Joe Biggs actually lied and said that he had a cousin in the hospital from Vegas. For all these people to be Vegas strong, that's highly suspect right there. Especially High Impact Flicks, who actually did a bit of damage control for the MSM. So the MSM had their version of the story. Some guy captures footage of the Mandalay, and you don't actually see any muzzle flash. So they say, well, maybe it wasn't a real shooting, like people are saying. Like the evidence would suggest. Not just the lack of evidence, but there were things that positively pointed it to being a hoax. And then you have High Impact Flicks, big YouTube channel, who says, no, the shooter was on a helicopter down the road. Like, what do you mean the shooter was in a helicopter? You got to add in another shooter? Second shooter, third shooter, fourth shooter. These are all rabbit trails designed to hide the staged operations. Alex Jones is here to hide the staged operations. He's basically guardrailing the MSM. Commenter says, Vape AIDS is making all the frogs gay, but Chaz Bono wears a top hat to a Flat Earth conference and everyone loses their minds. Couldn't agree more. Active shooter in Tennessee. Don't worry, it's a hoax. It's a drill. Let's take a look at it really quick anyway. Active shooter, Tennessee. I mean, look, we properly guessed it last time. I was like, it's going to be black Hebrew Israelites. Okay, this one's in Tennessee. Possible active shooter at an air base. Okay, if it's at an air base, it's going to be an Allah Akbar, and it's going to be used to get the military vote. It's going to be used to make the military think we need them, which we don't. I don't need you to protect me from boogeymen. I don't believe in the boogeyman. So you can stop taking my tax dollars. You're not my hero. You're not defending my freedoms. You're fucking my freedoms up. Bunch of brainwashies. Shaven-headed cult leaders. I mean, cult members is what they call them. Shaven-headed cult members is what this guy who wrote the book, I think it was called, damn, who was that guy? He called in once, and he had this book about slavery and about, government and tyranny, and he called military members shaven-headed cult members. And I'm like, why would you say that? But now that I think about it, it makes a lot of sense. I'm going to have to find out who he is and what the book was called and get him on the phone. Because the points he was making are extremely valid to me now, especially that when you consider that they're being used to protect us from things that don't exist. Do you need militarized police to protect you from school shooters? If the school shooters are fake? No. Authentic says, I'd love to hear your thoughts on veganism. I'll tell you what, man. I guarantee you're a coward. If you call me, I'll give you my thoughts. But the fact that you won't call in on this makes me think that you're an agent. And here's how I know. Agents don't put their voices on the phone. And by agent, I mean you have an agenda. You have an ulterior motive. I've seen you in here. Your comments have had nothing to do with what we're talking about. And then you're over here pushing your own agenda. So if you're not willing to call in, I'm going to have to conclude that you have a voice that you don't want heard, meaning you're somebody we know and you don't want to be exposed. And there are a lot of snakes like that around here. If you go to my blog at timosman.space, you can see some of the aliases used by people like Eric Dubay, even. Patricia Steer uses an alias, using fake pictures. And what is with that? So let's continue. Police respond to active shooter at the base 1 hour ago. Let me get the most up-to-date information. No injuries after report of suspicious person. So remember when I said it was already a hoax? And I said, hey, it's a hoax, chill. Well, guess what? If you had panicked, let's say you panicked. You flipped out, you called your congressman, you said, get rid of the guns. If you made a sign, not one more dead or whatever. If you basically went into activism mode because there's another shooter, if you went to Twitter to go tweet David Hogg about the latest outrage, guess what? Nothing happened. No reports, nothing. No shots, all bullshit, just headlines. Nothing. Nothing to see here. Commenter says, I want to talk to you about the Earth's movement. Oh, you mean about the conspicuous lack of stellar parallax? Anyone who says that they have seen stellar parallax is a big fat liar. How about that? They'll say, well, no, I'm referring to the best experts. Well, I don't trust your experts. Last night, we did this thing, and I don't want to ever do it again, on Discord. We went through all of the flat earth cringe rap we could. And, oh man, it's bad. It's bad. We may actually do a special on it. Oh, also, you might find this interesting. I got a tip. And look, I don't just throw things out there. I have to, do some background research myself. But yesterday I made an exception. Just out of someone, I guess I was frustrated. Somebody sent me an email and they said, "Hey, I'm pretty sure that Talib Kweli Green is actually playing the role of Immortal Technique with the mask." And I'm like, "No way." I'm just gonna, I don't really see it, but I'm gonna just prod this one a little bit. So I actually made this deep fake of the day because I don't really see it, but we're talking about a mask technology and I haven't looked at it too deeply. So as a joke, not as a joke, but as a prod, I sent this to Talib and I said, "Hey, is this you in a hyper-realistic silicone mask?" And I actually didn't think he would respond because I think he's got like 1 million subs and he's probably got something better to do, but he did respond. He did respond, and it was actually rather amusing. He said, "This is hilarious. Are you all lonely or what?" Pretty much it. So he didn't confirm or deny. I don't really know one way or the other. I'm just saying it was asserted. It's not beyond the pale for what we're talking about. We're in a really strange time where there's mice on the outside of the space station. Look, we were vindicated on this one. Is Paul Zimmer deep faking as Troy Becker? This has actually been confirmed. Okay, we got somebody who wants to actually call in. Okay, yeah, let me go ahead and open up phones really quick here. And here's why I'm doing this. We're clearly not talking about feminism right now. We're not talking about the patriarchy. We're not talking about wage disparities between the genders. So when somebody in the chat says, "I want to talk about why women don't get equal pay for equal work," I'm like, that's cool, man, but start your own channel and talk about that. You want a higher minimum wage? You don't want to pay your college loans? Go beat a drum somewhere, but not here. So this guy named Authentic comes in, and he wants to talk about veganism. So I'm going to open the phone so he can talk about veganism. Commenter says, Dell's movement theory from behind the imaginary curve is compelling. Dell with the wet soccer ball? Not the most credible voice on the matter, but he has put a lot of time and energy into this topic, and if there is any good information, he probably has come across it. Infinite Plane Radio, what'd you have for breakfast today?
Hello?
Hey, what'd you have for breakfast today?
2 apples.
Awesome. So, hey, what topic are you calling on?
Veganism, not feminism.
I know, but feminism and veganism have as much to do with today's topic as anything. So I'm like, well, maybe it's anything. Anything goes.
It seemed relevant to what the chat was talking about.
So, do you think that Alex Jones is deep faking as that old man in the fat costume?
No, I don't. I don't really have an opinion about that one. I don't really care about if Alex Jones. He could possibly. I don't doubt it. I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay. Well, can you at least say that body would fit in that costume if he decided to swing that way?
Yeah, I mean, it totally would be possible. Would not be surprised at all.
Okay, so now. Okay,
yeah.
Good. I just want to make sure that you're not just totally. Yeah, it is within the realm of possibility. So, in your view, what does veganism have to do with the big picture, as far as?
That's why I felt like I just asked 2 simple questions this whole chat, and when people are getting at me, I just asked. I'm curious about your thoughts on veganism because I never hear you talk about nothing like. What do you like? I feel like that plays a role.
What are your thoughts on feminism first, and then maybe I'll share that. But I want to know what your thoughts are and how it ties into this.
Feminism, I don't like women should be treated fairly. I don't like.
Do you exercise?
I'm not deep into feminism. That's not my subject. Is feminism? Veganism is more my subject.
Are you white-splaining veganism? Are you white? Are you coming from a place of privilege?
I would not call myself white.
Would other people call you white?
Privilege, of course. We're all privileged. If I'm talking to you, I'm privileged. If I have eyeballs to see, I'm privileged. If I have an able body and I'm not a quadriplegic, I'm privileged.
Okay.
What do you mean privileged?
No,
We're all blessed.
Okay. Just checking. I'm trying to see where you're coming from because
I'm chill. I felt like I'm asking these simple questions. Not one of these truth channels, none of these flat earths. Maybe Eric Dubay will say something about veganism. He's the only one that can
But Eric Dubay never says anything about equal pay for women for doing equal work. He doesn't care about
because it's not as relevant as to taking an innocent animal and murdering it, slitting its throat.
Wait.
Exploiting it, eating its.
Your mother. Wait. I'm sorry, but your mother and your sister are not as important as the chicken
sandwich
on the
street. That's not what I'm saying. No. You're trying to tie two things in together where we're just talking about one issue. You're like, well, veganism tied into, you could tie it into any other. Like, why feminist? Why are you choosing feminism
Okay, well,
to
look,
talk
look,
about?
look. I'm saying, like, well, why would you invoke Eric Dubay in this conversation? Just because he likes to eat apples for breakfast like you do doesn't change the fact that not only is he a Nazi, but he's a total misinformation agent. He's a false
Yeah,
flagger.
yeah, I'm not for him. I was asking the question about veganism. Who other these people bringing great information? Like, you got quality information, and so many of these other channels got quality information. It's just like they miss out on a couple subjects that are pertinent to everyone's everyday life. Like, what you're choosing to be part of, what where your dollar's going, what you're doing with yourself is mainly what you're eating. Are you just eating McDonald's? Like, what is this? What's practical? What makes sense? Hello?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Look, I had this caller like a month ago.
I called in once before.
Okay,
Yeah.
I had a caller before though who says you never talk about circumcisions, and I'm like, well, do you have like a group of like aggrieved males behind you? Like, who are you speaking on behalf of? And it's because it's really easy to stand up and be a white knight in favor of like Greta. How dare you? You can stand up in front of any voiceless group, and a lot of people are posturing, and a lot of it is just white knighting and it's virtue signaling. And so when somebody shows me, hey, look, I'm eating a tofu burger or whatever, I'm like, okay, good for you. You're virtue signaling. Are you really saving the planet? So like, are you not eating animals out of compassion, or do you have a political agenda attached to it, would be my question, because some diets are political.
Yeah, it's not a diet at all. It is a lifestyle, and it's out of compassion and empathy towards these innocent animals. Like, it is like that. It's like, what you said with circumcision, there are people that are really upset about that. Have you ever heard of the blood-stained men? Like, have you ever heard of these groups that are, my whole baby? Like, there's people that are really upset that their parents just mutilated their genitals without their consent. There's a lot of people upset about it just because you haven't heard about it. I'm not upset about it. I didn't have my genitals cut, but I can feel for these other people that are really upset, and these mothers that regret it
You can
because
feel for them?
the doctors. Man,
No, I'm
when
sorry,
you
just
see
bad-
other
bad
people,
choice.
when you see other people in pain, can you not say, "Oh, I don't care about these other people"? It's just about any person struggling or disenfranchised. You can feel for them in a way that's like, "Yo, man, I'm sorry for your
Loss.
loss. I'm sorry that you got beat up, or I'm sorry that something bad
Okay, let
happened
me ask
to
you
you.
another
You
question.
see somebody
What do you
with
think?
bad
Wait.
misfortune,
What do you
you
think?
feel bad for them.
What are your thoughts about the conditions of the planet and the environment? Do you think that climate change adversely affects the poor?
Have you seen the documentary Cowspiracy?
It talks about how the cows are bringing down the sky, and it pretty much affects the poor, right?
It talks about the environmental impact of animal agriculture and cattle farming because, they produce a lot of methane. They take up a lot of land. They take up a lot of water. Lots of energy and resources go into raising a farm animal like a cow. Or
in other
think
words,
how much food they eat a day, how much water they drink a day. A lot.
big carbon footprints.
Big carbon footprint, yeah.
I was looking at, on the space station. They have this 3D printer, and they say that they can print meat. And I'm like, wait, why would you take cow cells to print meat? Why not just use human cells? Like, how can you if you're going to get to the point where, you can artificially create meat? Do you think that it should start off as cow and chicken? In other words, an original sacrifice, or should we use human embryo?
I wouldn't do either. None of that. What we don't need. Is it necessary? You got to look at the question of: is it necessary? What is necessary, practical, and what was the purpose of where are we natural carnivores? You think we got giant claws and sharp teeth and a long digestive tract? Like, are we meant to eat meat?
Well, you know what? I was taught. Okay.
Meat is a euphemism for animal flesh. So I wouldn't even call it meat. Personally,
when I was in anthropology,
euphemisms.
Anthropology 101, they taught us something, and I don't know if this is bullshit because it's all evolution and everything, and they were suggesting that our digestive system developed, or rather, its development was augmented by cooking meat, and that we kind of we developed that way because we are cooking meat that our digestive
Yeah,
tract
yeah, that's
adapted. You've
more of
heard
like
that?
an official narrative, and like
It
when
sounds
you
like
look
crap.
at the actual biological design, we're more of a frugivore. We don't carnivores have a lot more different distinguishing features, like the short digestive tract, different amino acids in their stomach. You know, they see in black and white. Their jaws just go up and down. You know, there's distinctive characteristics that are different. And then you look at what is causing these leading causes of death that we've talked, like, number one, you know, heart disease, two, cancer, three, medical malpractice. It's like the official story is, oh yeah, eat meat is good. It's like, and that's what everyone's going for, is the official story, the MSM. Eat cheese and meat, cheese and meat, cheese and meat, every commercial. You know what I'm saying? Like, so why wouldn't it be totally relevant to question this mainstream? Every commercial you look at is like, put more cheese and meat on it. And you think, oh, maybe they're telling the truth about that one. I should just eat more of that. It's like, I feel like the future, you know.
Well, wait,
just practical.
you say mainstream, but the truth is, mainstream is actually, if you look at like mainstream culture, it's actually pushing more of a leftist thing, and it is gearing people towards. They are trying to coerce people.
It's like, because there's awakening, so they have to acknowledge the awakening of people being, oh, I don't need to eat this other animal's flesh to survive, and I can actually thrive off of other things that are better. Oh, I don't need necessity. I don't need to eat this animal. Like, people are waking up to that, so then they have to play into it and be like, all right, well,
now let me
we'll
ask you a
make
question.
some real
A minute
fucked
ago,
up
you were talking
burger.
about the environmental impacts of animals and things.
Cowspiracy, if you ever watched that.
I've watched it. I've watched Cowspiracy. I'm familiar with that. If you didn't know, cow flatulence drowns polar bears. If you follow the logic.
Yeah. The Cowspiracy is another, you know, official.
What about what about babies? The same person who let me know about cows had told me about babies, and she said, you know, the carbon footprint of a baby when you include the diapers and what goes into manufacturing those, or even pets. You may think SUVs are bad, and you walk by an SUV and you want to smash the windows because they're polluting, but then a Morkie or a Yorkie Terrier or any of these small dogs, if you take the amount of food it takes to feed them in a year, and then the amount of land it would take to grow everything to produce that food, those animals have carbon footprints that we cannot justify.
Yeah, we shouldn't be force breeding them. We shouldn't be force breeding any animals into existence.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Pets, to have a pet is kind of like a weird
Slavery.
thing. Maybe a companion animal. And it's like, then people with these dogs and cats have to question their lives again one more time when they're like, oh, would I have any sort of issue with eating dog flesh or cat flesh? Is there something weird with that? Because there shouldn't be if I'm eating a pig and a cow. Like,
so what are your thoughts on
cows
pets?
are a lot smarter. So, you know, in other countries, dogs are chickens, pretty much. And
do you think that people should not be allowed to keep pets?
No, that's not what I'm saying. Pets are, you know, you rescue animals sometimes and you save them by claiming them as a pet. So in them cases, yeah, I'm not about it, but, you know.
But the breeding and the show dogs, that kind of stuff, what do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's sick. Horse racing, any sort of animal exploitation is pretty much disgusting. Why? Tell me how it isn't. I would love to hear your opinion on it. I would love for you to tell these people out there your feelings on animal exploitation. If you're not scared to, or if you want to, I don't care.
I'm still not
convinced. I would just love to.
I'm still not
convinced.
You
don't have to.
I'm not convinced, though, that you're not just like virtue signaling, because anybody can say things and say, oh,
no, that's why my name is Authentic on there, because I'm being genuine.
That doesn't,
I'm not
look, man,
fucking around.
No joke. The last guy I know who went by Authentic was a sex offender who lied about it. So Authentic.
Yeah, I never heard of that, but yeah, valid point. But
like, I could say, like, I'm a Christian and you're a sinner and you're going to hell and you're not saving souls, so I'm better than you. And so I try to watch out for that kind of moral posturing and virtue signaling. Are you a better person? I don't know. Do you think you're saving the planet? Is that one? I have a question. Do you believe you're saving the planet, or you're saving people, you're saving lives? Do you think that you have a better vision that could be realized if your views could be universalized?
Well, if you take the simple principle of we're trying to use the golden rule of treat these animals like we want to be treated, and so would you immediately be saving animal lives? I would say, you know, pretty quickly that would show that you are. Like, if everyone overnight ceased from eating these animal products, there wouldn't be a demand for forced artificial insemination of these animals to breed into existence, where the man artificially inseminates these animals, which is really creepy and weird and like bestiality. So it's like, why take part in then eating the flesh of this depressed animal that's been encaged its whole life? Why?
So, what is the long-term, I guess, approach for you? Is this something that you win in the culture war and then it affects the marketplace and people demand other things? Like, so for example, do you think if they replaced every McDonald's with a vegan burger joint, do you think it could change everything?
It would save the lives of millions upon billions of animals in the long run. So isn't that good to try to save the lives? It's not like virtue signaling, oh, I'm sticking up for these cows. It's like, I'm looking out. Imagine, here's all you have to do to think about veganism is imagine if you were the animal. Do you want to be fucked with? Do you want to be put in a little cage? Do you want to have artificially inseminated? Do you want this stuff to happen to you?
These are all interesting points you're raising, but I'm just I'm wondering where you're coming from. Like, for example,
I care.
Well, I know you care, but the road to hell has always been paved with good intentions. The utopians always care, and if part of your worldview also includes statism, then I have to say that you're also pro-slavery. So it's like, I'm not going to judge you or get all judgy about your positions.
No, I'm not pro-statism. I'm for people just realizing there doesn't have to be any laws passed or anything. People just have to wake up and say, hey, I really don't need to eat the flesh of this unless I'm an Eskimo, where plants don't grow. I don't know.
What would you say to them? Leave those seals alone? Stop beating the baby seals?
Yes, I definitely would. I'd say grow some microgreens inside your house. Stop. Think of necessity.
Necessity.
That's the key word, necessity.
What about sustainability? How do you feel about the word sustainability?
Sustainability sounds good. Have you heard of permaculture, where just natural, the nature around you just gets stronger?
Yeah, no, I've heard all this. It's just there are certain buzzwords that are really just code for Agenda 2030, for neo-feudalism. And I think that part of the cultural shift of trying to get people to go off of meat even may play into this. And I haven't really decided yet. I'm looking into it, but I don't think that I don't think that your opinions are invalid or whatever. I may not share them right now, but I'm interested in hearing. So thanks for calling. Thanks for actually being real, because a lot of people talk crap in the chat rooms and they don't call in.
No, yeah, I appreciate, even if you just look into it and think about it more, because, it is a real complex issue, and I'm not, more people, I think there has to be more of a discussion on it, because it does seem pertinent. I don't know.
Right. Okay, cool. Well, hey, I appreciate the call. Have a great day.
Likewise. Thank you. Have a great day.
All right, that was Authentic, who ate 2 apples today. And saved a couple lives. Okay, so we have right now part 1, 2, and 3 of Cult of the Obelisk up on YouTube. So if you missed it on the premieres on DLive, and also if you're a patron, you also got the link sent to you. Right now the title is Flat Earth Republicans, NASA CURVERTS, Alex Jones in a Fat Suit. That was a caller who was off topic, so I invited him to call in just to make sure he was real, because you get a lot of these off-topic callers who are just trolling. Psyops Matter says, no wonder he's crazy, he was starving. Haha. Dirty Bird says, dogs are vegan now, and doggy heart disease is a thing. BB Truth says, sustainable equals complete domination and control of us. Oh yeah, sustainable, that's what it means. Mars domes. The gulags. See, here's the thing. When you're in the gulag, they don't want you. They want to move you into the gulags. That's what's happening. You're moving into gulag life. The long march through the institutions the commies talked about, the long march, the name of the rocket, going to Mars. It's happening. And they can't have you still attached to your car, your individuality, your ego, your American diets. So they have to disabuse you of these things. Take their guns, take their burgers, take their religions, take their family units, take their concept of masculinity, femininity, American individualism, turn them into drones who will put on these uniforms, spacesuits that make them look like drones. You will look like drone ants, a bunch of ant people. So I'm just under the impression, more or less, that the idea of going green, of cutting meat, like look, the guy Joker, Joaquin Phoenix, was hanging out with Jane Fonda at the fire drill, blaming America for the burning of Australia. And again, this is World War III. World War III is the environment versus man, and it's a universal thing. It's a worldwide thing. So he's out there saying you need to cut your dairy, you need to cut your meat. So when I got a bunch of statists, when I have a bunch of psychotic commies telling me, hey, get rid of your property, give us your money, give us your guns, stop eating that stuff, stop this, stop that, thou shalt, thou shalt. I'm like, you sound like a bunch of commies. So why don't you, and this is what I usually think, if you have a better vision, a better world, why don't you go move on to your little commune where you can do things better, show us. I mean, the whole idea of America is brilliant. 50 states, 50 laboratories. Hey, try legal pot here. See if it works. Reduce this here, change these regulations here. And so you have these different experiments. And if something takes off well in one state, they can replicate it. So what I'm saying is that all of you hystericals, all of you who are like really passionate, why don't you take that passion and build your commune, build your ideal society, and then show us. And say, hey, look, it works. It works. BB True says, IPS, do you think the UN or the US will sign over its military to the UN? Good question. I mean, America is being framed as a pariah. America has to fall in order for the world to have a unified response to climate change. That's just a fact. We are in the way. It also happens to be the case that the space race is really going to be a race between who is going to decide what we do with what we get out there. Are we going to create communes on Mars or America on Mars? Well, they want a commune. Are we going to bring down $1 trillion worth of wealth from outer space because we can in the form of asteroids made out of platinum and diamonds and Bitcoin? No, because that will disrupt the world's economy. So they got to, we're basically threatening everything. America, and this is their storyline, of course. We know it's all bunk, but so no, I think America is being set up to take a fall, to capitulate, and we're losing the moral high ground because of PG&E and those fires, because of Australia and those fires. And you get this bozo clown, Joaquin Phoenix, hanging out with Jane Fonda, doing fire drill Fridays, saying, you need to stop eating meat because Australia is burning. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not falling for any of this crap. Or the peer pressure from these New World Order types who want to totally control your lives. And the fact that Eric Dubay pushes veganism doesn't make me think veganism is any more right. It makes me think it's all the more likely a technocrat ideal given to the poor, given to the people they're going to control. So no, it's probably the official diet of the technocrats. It's why it's going to be vegan on Mars. So like, why don't you guys go pack your things and go to Mars? Go live in your idealized world away from those of us who are fallen. I think it's all basically that. I think it's a political move. I think it's more of a political diet, like a religious diet. Like this one says you can't eat shellfish. This one says you can't eat pigs. This one says you can't do this. And it's like, how much of this is actually moral? How much of it is really about power and control? It's easier to control people who are starving. And also, I think there are a lot of straw men, of course, and that's why I want people to call in. I'm not here attacking veganism, but I am attacking church ladies who want everyone to conform to their ways. If you're a church lady, go to church and get other church ladies to fill up the church. And then there was a lot of you, then you can make changes. But the way they're doing it is it's one guy at a time running around saying, you're bad, you're bad, you're bad, I'm good. It's like, cool, we got it. You're better than us. But this church lady reaction, the social justice warrior stuff, it's rarely attached to any meaningful action. It's all just cajoling. It's like Greta. Servev says, I thought all roads lead to Rome. Yeah, all roads lead to Mars now. When I saw that on the rocket going to Mars from China. It's literally called the Long March. Like it couldn't be any more clear. Dirty Bird says end all suffering. You see, this is what I mean. The world is a place of suffering, and the only way to end it, of course, is to save it. And to save it, we must all embrace this asceticism, of refrain from sinning, refrain from indulging. And they've reinvented this thing where now your sins and your indulgences are going to, bring down the wrath of God. But if you are pure, you can actually get into a rocket and you can go to the moon or you can go to Mars where you can live a more pure life. Like all these off the grids type people. I want to go live off the grid. I'm tired of this stuff. The world's going to end. I'm stocking up on MREs. I'm going to go just live out there in the woods and only interact when I'm listening to Alex Jones. Like all these off the grid types never actually went anywhere. None of the communes went to communes. The communists, they never went to the communes. All they do is they linger, they take out student loans and they learn how to be bigger communists and statists, but they never actually go out and they never do it. And that's probably why Mars is such a powerful thing. Because what they've been doing is they've been pointing to examples like, oh, I've seen the future and it works, Soviet Russia. Or we can do things like they do it over here. And then you go look at how the communists actually run things and you find out, well, maybe it's not such an easy sell. Maybe we don't want that big pile of skulls. Maybe we don't want deprivation, class warfare, class envy, destruction of the nuclear family. Maybe we don't want violent revolution. So what do? Instead of having these negative examples to point to, now they can just point to a place that never existed. So it never actually fell. We never saw the dark side of this Martian utopia because it's never actually existed. In fact, the term utopia, and that's why I call it space utopianism. The very meaning of utopia, I think it derives from the word that means nowhere. An imagined place or state of things where everything is perfect. Misplaced faith in political utopias has led to ruin. A utopia is an imagined community or society possessed by highly desirable or nearly perfect qualities for its citizens. So I would say that the last caller would be a utopian. And if everybody could just live this way, we could have this perfect society. An ideally perfect place, especially in its social, political, and moral aspects. This is one of the things I talked about in Cult of the Obelisk. They have been selling us on outer space as a utopia. It's idealism. And I think it was Nietzsche who said, idealism kills. And utopians and idealists are dangerous to themselves and to society. And they're dangerous when they get into big numbers. So, I'm saying you church ladies gather up in a church, but really, I don't really mean that. I mean, building a consensus of believers or radicals is never really a good thing. Okay, so let me go ahead and move on. I want to go through my Twitter feed for a minute. Commenter says segregation is the key to utopianism. Well, it kind of depends. Yeah, in a way, you're right. It's about separating that group from everybody else at a distance. In fact, if you look at the book, I think it was Leviathan by Thomas Hobbes. He talks about, this is when they first introduced the idea of like the state and the need for a state, and the idea that without the state, we would have nothing but barbarism. We need it. But anyway, some of these utopians, if you actually read their descriptions, I think even utopia itself. Let me get the actual book by Thomas More. They describe this place as surrounded by a moat, population control, and everything. It was actually a satire, but here we go. Thomas More's Utopia. And it goes into extreme detail about the extreme planning. Now, it's kind of a joke or a satire on how these state planners are just micromanaging everything to hell. But This is exactly what we're looking at with the space program. It's literally this. It's almost just a bad satire. The original name was even longer, A Truly Golden Book of a Republic's Best State and the New Island of Utopia. It's from the Greek Greek word meaning no place or nowhere. All right, let's see if there's anything else here. I did point this out earlier. The SpaceX returned to Earth, the one that sent the mice up to space. Oh, I am being followed on Twitter. So if you go to my Twitter account, it's a pretty new one. It's Infinite Planar. And you go to my followers list. My newest follower is RX Cole. This is the security engineer at SpaceX, director at Startup Security Mentor. And I went through his feed, and many of them are deleted, but he did have some direct exchanges with Elon Musk. Musk's tweets were then subsequently deleted, but my point is, one of Musk's guys is now following me on Twitter. Why is that? So I sent him a message, and I said, Mousegate, no response. Tell Elon the IPS knows. Guarantee he's not going to respond, but he hasn't blocked me. BB Truth says, their utopia is placing us all in small cities and taking our private property. Yep, you nailed it. Smart cities, small cities, just like the Mars domes. They're gulags dressed up like the Jetsons. That's all it is. It's a new perfect life, smart. I mean, who could argue it's smart? Do you want to live in a smart home? What's the alternative? A dumb home. It's like, do you want to be one of the good people? Well, what's the alternative? One of the bad people. Do you want to be one of the good vegans, or you want to be one of the murderous meat eaters, one of the bloodmouths? These false dichotomies that really put things into overly simplistic categories for the purposes of dividing people. And here's Greta Thunberg. Turns out her dad writes all of her scripts. Facebook glitch reveals Greta Thunberg's father posts as the teenage climate activist. Okay, let's see if there's anything else. Hey, we did say Cardi B is probably going to fake her death. We mentioned this because she's 27. Now she's tweeting about wanting to become a politician. That should tell you something. My whole documentary about SpaceX, the symbolism that SpaceX is all euphemism, Babylonian fertility cult. It is, in fact, space sex. Well, there's a Japanese billionaire looking for space sex on the SpaceX rocket, and they put it in this article by The Verge. His name is Yusaku Maezawa, and here he is, and that's not a dildo, that's a rocket, and he's taking some lucky woman on a trip on this rocket around the moon, and he's going to pay, man, I think $100 million or whatever. He says, with that future partner of mine, I want to shout out our love and world peace from outer space. I hope it's not live streamed. They say they're going to send him up in 3 months. So this guy's going on a cruise, on a space cruise in 3 months. I think everybody knew that. I figured that Greta's scripts were being written by David Hogg's mom, who writes all of his tweets. If you missed this, I mentioned this yesterday. Somebody found a SpaceX rocket. It washed up north on the Gulf Stream, a place called Everly. I don't know, this is just a piece of a rocket washing up. How did that happen? I thought it was in space. Okay, I'm going to take off. This is Greta Thunberg shoots up a Walmart. Breaking news. I'll put this on autohoax.com with any updates.
Breaking news. Greta Thunberg opens fire at Walmart, killing and severely injuring hundreds of shoppers. Among the deceased were several organizers of the International Flat Earth Conference, who had needed a place to park their tour bus and fill up on sugary snacks before embarking on a cruise that will now never happen. I guess the only cruise these flat earthers will be on the Lake of Fire. Before unloading the MAC-10, Glock 9, and 30 meg, the rattling battle cry of "How dare you" could be heard echoing all across the plain. There were no survivors, including Thunberger, who turned the Glock 9, her favorite, on herself. A manifesto scribbled on 100% recycled hemp fiber described it as the last beacon of hope for a dying world, and that Allah and all 77 of her cats would be awaiting her in heaven. How dare us, indeed.
A flat Earth report. Those are striking terms.